Hey everybody, today I'm making an abstract watercolor art journal page and I'm using the Daniel Smith watercolor sticks. I have a bunch of them because I really loved using them in my sketchbook during our holidays. I usually do not use them like I would use watercolor, and I was a lot inspired by Sandy Hester using them in her sketches, and I thought, why not use them in my art journal to create a kind of a watercolory art journal page, so I can use them in my sketchbook and directly in my art journal. And I usually in my sketchbook scribble like this onto the wet page to create different textures, and I'm doing it here, and you can see that the marks do not 100% dilute with the border, so they stay on the paper. I think that also depends on the paper that you are using. I'm using a watercolor journal here from Kunst und Papier, and it's, I think, 25% cotton in it. I'm not a fan of cotton watercolor paper. I usually don't like that. It absorbs the color so much. I randomly play with the colors. I want to create something contrasting with orange and blue, and I'm starting with the warm colors. I'm using the Quniachridone burnt orange and I think it's the crimson. I will try to not forget to list the names of the sticks I'm using in the description. I recently got one of the Daniel Smith watercolor tubes, the undersea green, because it's a color I love using from these sticks. And there I recognize that I think you cannot compare the sticks with the paints, especially with the tube paints, because I don't have any pens. I can't see the difference. But the tube paint, the granulation of the paint that you get in the tube is much more intense than what you can get out of these sticks, I feel. I love the sticks. I think they make such a nice texture and they are so playful, especially for sketching. But I see people buying these instead of the watercolors. But I think that the watercolors are just different. They are more, they have more granulation, and they are different in application. So I would not recommend doing it. If you want to paint with watercolor, I would buy the watercolor and not the watercolor sticks. I really enjoyed the play here. I made a little bit of a mess at the bottom to get some grunginess and also try to force the granulating effect with the Lunar Black here. And here you can see that my page is already dry. It has flattened a little bit because it was quite buckling with the water I've used, and it has flattened out a lot. And now I'm going to do some background stamping. I picked the cherry pink from StazOn because I really like that color together with the orange I have already on the page, and I just want to create a little bit of background texture and to build kind of a cluster where I can put a focal image later in the process. And I'm also going to add another layer of watercolors to bring in depth. I'm using our Mix It Up number 6 stamp set, and I believe also the number 5. I never can remember which stamp is in which set, except from the bigger ones. And here I used a darker color. I think it was black. As I tell you always, my screen is quite small when I'm doing the voiceover, and I also am not the youngest person anymore, so I sometimes cannot see what's going on without any glasses, and I think I'm using black or any dark ink for even more background texture. As I said, I like to build a cluster and to lay the focus in a certain area on my page where I then can place a focal image. I always try to not cover the whole page with stuff. I try to have some empty areas, to have a focal area, and then have a little little bits and pieces around with interest that catches the eyes once they are floating out from the center area, I would say. And that's what I always try to do. After I have done the stamping, I come in with a second layer of watercolor or of the watercolor sticks, and I'm picking the Inthrandone blue. I cannot pronounce that right. It's a wonderful blue. I love it so much. It's perfect for hills. We have been to Croatia, and I really like sometimes the hills there were quite in a cool gray, and I really loved using that blue instead to create depth in my drawings. And here I'm just playing with the blue and with the contrast between the orange. I really love how the orange pops up against the blue, and I just play with my marks and the brush and see what I can achieve with just using one brush and making a few marks. I try not to overwork it. I think I sometimes tend to do this because I so enjoy the process. I love the playful part of this, and sometimes I think my page is quite too small because I'm enjoying the playing so much. But I think you have to stop in the right moment, not to overwork your page, not to put too much down. I'm now going in with I think it's the Soladite Genuine, which is a bluish grayish granulating color, and I'm just adding that in to darken some areas up a little bit. And of course, you don't need to have these watercolor sticks to recreate this kind of spread. You can use normal watercolors, they will work perfectly. I just always try to use my materials as often as I can and in many different ways, because they are often quite expensive, and I always think I have to use them, because just buying art materials and then I don't use them, that's not what they are meant for. So I always try to use them in many different ways. I also recently started using my distress ink pads in my sketchbook just to lay down some color on the background, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I also started using the brushes in my sketchbook. Sometimes you have to figure out which materials will work on which kind of paper, and I really enjoy that. Yeah, that I can use so many different materials in so many different ways, and that's what I love about making art. It's the playfulness of it, and it's what I think makes me feel like a child, and that is something that makes me happy, I would say. Here I have grabbed out a gel print, and I already did some experiments here with the stenciling, but I'm focusing not on that stenciling, I'm focusing on the orange turquoisey color I have here, and it's matching my spread quite well. And I'm stamping a butterfly with Versamark ink, and now I'm embossing it with black embossing powder. Before I do it, I just cut the part out. Then it's a bit easier to cover that up. And this is going to be my focal image. I like to use embossing powder when I stamp over a jelly print because it's just a bit more opaque than ink, and it gives you some dimension, and that makes the image pop up more from the background. I'm very sorry, but my phone was ringing. I'm now going to heat set this, and then I cut the butterfly out. I'm going to cut away its antennas because they are so tiny. And that's the reason why I'm stamping the butterfly again directly onto my spread. So I have the antennas back and I've cut out the butterfly directly on the black outline. So I can now glue it just into the area on my page. And you almost can see that it's a cut out image. But as always, before I'm doing it, I'm going to add some splatters to my spread. I'm using that white Art Graf tailor shape to make my splatters. I really love this. I use it all the time. And I just want to lighten up the area where I have a lot color going on, just to bring in some spots of highlight. And once this is dry, I'm adhering the butterfly to the page. I'm also picking one of our sentiments from the Mixed Sentiments stamp set, and I stamp it directly onto the spread. It's always kind of a risk stamping a sentiment directly onto a page, because if you're messing it up, it might be I would say a bigger mistake, because it shows up as maybe you can't read something. But I thought in case I'm messing it up, I just can glue something on top of it. But I think it worked out quite nice, and I love it that it builds kind of a part of a frame of the image and also is a title at the same time. I'm not sure what I'm doing next. I think I add a little bit of stamping maybe to the top right. There might be something missing in my eyes. I did quite a lot pages in the past, and sometimes it takes some time until I'm able to do the voiceover, and then sometimes I forget about what I had done. I think I'm cleaning my stamp first, because I usually tend to not clean my stamps very well, and then the next time I'm stamping them, they are a mixture of colors. And here I used the Midnight Blue from StazOn and that ticket stamp on the right, on the top right. Yeah, that's where I thought that something was missing. Yeah, and the page is done. I hope you enjoyed it and you are inspired, and I hope you will see us next time. Bye.